Infectious disease specialist Dr. Zain Chagla joins us this morning via Skype to answer more questions about the latest developments of COVID-19. Happy Friday. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Bob.
Okay, big development this morning. Well, it came out yesterday, but we're talking this morning about AstraZeneca and the dosing error, and they're likely going to have to do a whole new trial over again. I remember when they first announced this balanced 70% efficacy, and just the two trials or the two doses, it just seemed very convoluted, and even the stock markets were going, huh? And there was concern about getting approval for this thing. So how much of a setback is this?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone wants a race to the finish here. They want the vaccine to work and they want the right dose and they want it out, tomorrow. Realistically, though, if you were to submit this drug to a regulator and say we accidentally misdosed 3,000 people in this trial, a regulator is going to have some big questions about how effective this trial actually is. It's not to say it won't be if they do it properly.
Yeah, but there was a lack of transparency here.
Yeah, I mean, they probably should have notified people when they got the wrong dose. As part of that adverse event reporting, you're supposed to, if there's a big trial error, you're supposed to let people know immediately. So they may have held on to it a little longer, but, if they do the trial again with the right dose, then hopefully the results come out. It just may come out a few months later than we'd like.
Did you have questions when they came out with that kind of regimen, though, and the different dosages?
Yeah, I mean, again, doing clinical trials, you have to follow everything to the letter of the law. And so, as they said, accidentally, we got the wrong dose. Everyone was praising that they got to 90%. But yeah, I was very concerned, obviously, that Health Canada is not going to look at that very nicely. Yeah. And reasonably so. I mean, consistency in clinical trials is a huge part of getting a drug approved.
Yeah. Now, ahead of that vaccine, of course, in Canada has bought actually more per capita than any other country in the world, the Pfizer candidate and the Moderna candidate and a number of other vaccines. But, of course, we don't the distribution in this country and manufacturing capability in this country, we're likely to get it later than other countries. Is that maybe a good thing? We'll see what happens with these rush vaccines.
I mean, I think, mRNA vaccines, there's been phase 1 trials of other mRNA vaccines that have lasted for years. And so there's some data there. There's our phase 1 data from these vaccines that are probably 6 months old. So I think that, the safety is relatively there. We're probably going to see a month or two delay. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world here. It's still an advantage that the vaccines are being manufactured, 50 kilometers to the south. So, yes, we don't have it right on site, but I don't think that's going to be a big deal. And knowing that these vaccines are coming and we are one of the biggest global consumers of it, does still give us a lot of hope that in the first quarter we'll get a lot of the most vulnerable people vaccinated.
Right. I want to ask you about the Eli Lilly antibody therapy with working with a Canadian company, but the Ottawa announced they were buying what was it, 26,000 doses. I noticed on Twitter you said you tweeted, "What a waste."
Yeah, I mean, so this therapy has to be given really early to people that aren't in hospital. You have to identify the highest risk people. You have to send someone in to do it, which means, from a nursing standpoint, sending a healthcare worker into a home or to a place where people have active COVID is also a big deal if they're not in healthcare. You're paying $1,000 for the dose, and the benefits aren't still totally there. The trial said it might keep the viral load a little bit lower than the average person. It might reduce the hospitalization, but even then, the trial that's been published is 5 versus 9 people that have been hospitalized in both arms of it. So it's not even a huge difference here. I think it's one of these things that needed more study before it needed to be bought. I don't fault the government for approving it. I probably would say it was very premature to actually start buying it, though.
Right, okay.
Given that it's a drug without a home.
Yeah. Before we go, the U.S. COVID task force and the CDC is looking at shortening the quarantine period from 14 days to perhaps 9 or 10. Something we should be doing?
Yeah, I think this is good information. 14 days is hard for people, and we are seeing that more and more. The evidence shows that most people who are going to turn positive after exposure are showing up positive early, and really by day 7 or 10, their test should be positive if they are going to be, if they're really truly going to develop COVID from that exposure. So 10 days has huge effects. It has huge economic effects. It has huge healthcare worker effects for healthcare workers who are accidentally exposed. So tying that up with a test and just a second bout of reassurance, it makes sense. And there's more and more data being published around this. So hopefully, again, if the CDC adopts this, we start adopting this too, given that we have the capacity, and it will help economically for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, hey, thanks for joining us again. Have a great weekend. Infectious disease specialist Dr. Zain Chagla.